Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Justin Van Fleet, president of the global children's charity Their World and executive director of the Global Business Coalition for Education. He previously served as the director of the International Commission on Financing Global Education Opportunity and chief of staff to the United Nations Special Envoy for Global Education, former UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown, where the landmark Learning and Generation report put forward a pathway to finance and deliver the ambitions of Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is inclusive and equitable quality education for all. Justin joins me to discuss ESG programs that makes education a central pillar and standardizing social impact analysis and reporting. Justin, it's great to have you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
There's been a lot of backlash around greenwashing in the ESG space, whether it's industry leaders, investors. And a new report by your organization suggests ESG is facing a crisis around its role. Tell us more about that.
Well, ESG really is facing a crisis, Jill. The first point that we want to look at is it really just a way for companies to have a framework to mitigate their own risk? Or is it a way for companies to make a broader impact on society and on the planet? I think you can do both, but when you're living in a planet that's getting warmer, you look around your community, people don't have livable wages, you look at a boardroom and you are lacking that diversity, people are starting to wonder, are these ESG programs and initiatives actually having the impact that people want to see on the planet?
How can education help with this crisis?
Well, education is really at the core. We believe that if we put education in the middle of the S and really add some rigor to ESG, it can address so many of these material issues that companies are facing today, whether it's supply chains and looking at child labor issues, whether it's diversity in their boardrooms and in their workplace, whether it's addressing talent shortages. But we also believe that education can address so many fundamental issues that society is facing. It has a direct link to carbon emissions, the better educated populations that we have, more women that complete education, we have lower carbon emissions. It has direct links to wage, economic growth, so many benefits and security, sustainability. So if we can look at how we can add rigor to the S, use education programs and policies to help address those and mitigate those risks companies face, we can drive broader impact for the planet as well.
How can companies leverage this type of framework to advance their ESG priorities?
Well, we really set down 4 different steps and stages in this process. First, looking at the materiality risks and those materiality matrix that companies have. If we can look at those risks, we then can identify specific programs and policies that are education-based that can address those risks. We can then add a level of metrics and measurements that can help companies see their performance across those various indicators. How are they doing in addressing those risks through education? But most importantly, and for society and for me, is we can take those metrics, and because what we're proposing are evidence-based solutions in terms of policies and programs, we can draw out the impacts that those corporate programs are having on society at large. And so we can actually start to show that ESG can make an impact in society and address many of those corporate concerns around sustainability.
Who's backing this approach, and how are you working with multiple corporations?
So we have a Global Business Coalition for Education, which is about 150 companies from around the world that we're working with day in and day out around how they can use education to address social impact needs, core business needs. And when we launched this report at the UN General Assembly a few weeks ago, we had companies like Estee Lauder, American Express, Snap Inc. all up on the stage talking about programs that they're implementing that are education programs that are addressing some of the core business risks that they face, but also having a broad impact on the planet.
Yeah, well, the challenge is with ESG, it's subjective. Right, and part of that is having the right tools to be able to quantify what companies are doing and have a way to evaluate it. What types of tools are you developing to help standardize this reporting?
So we're creating essentially a library of programs and policies that are evidence-based that companies can take off the shelf and implement, and alongside that, a series of metrics that are rigorous, based in evidence, that can also help monitor the impact that these programs have. And we're working with companies in doing this. It's not us sitting in an office by ourselves creating these things. We're actually working with companies, looking at what they're trying to achieve, working with academic institutions to try to create this portfolio of off-the-shelf ways that it can make it easy for companies to choose education and make this impact on the planet. And really, 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 why we want education to be at the core of ESG is because we're facing an education crisis. Right. We have 1 out of 2 young people who are not going to have the most basic skills they need for the workforce in 2030. 2 weeks ago in the US, a study came out saying that 1 out of 3 young people is proficient in reading. If we think about what impact that is going to have for companies in the future, their own sustainability, economic growth, innovation, it's tremendous. So if we can use education to address ESG concerns that companies have and drive broader progress, it has a long-term benefit for everyone.
How are the ratings agencies and financial analysts taking this?
Positive so far, but there's always the concern around we don't need another set of metrics. We don't need another way to report. And so we're working with rating agencies to see if we can have these metrics integrated in their existing reporting structures and systems so that we're not recreating the wheel. We're just adding more rigor to the way that they're looking at evaluating the way that companies are performing on ESG. We're also talking to asset managers in ways that we can set up portfolios so that companies that are doing work to invest in the next generation of young people are rewarded through investors putting money behind those companies.
I think out of everything that we just spoke about, it's so concerning how the next generation just doesn't have the proficiency to tackle these issues. 2030 is not that far away.
7 years.
Yeah, 7 years. And we need these skill sets, and that, it takes time to train and to get companies on board. So I guess the question is, if organizations want to get involved, what's the best way for them to go about this?
I'd encourage anyone to go to our website, GBC-Education.org. We have ways that they can join the coalition, starting at a fee-free tier, come in, meet others that are grappling with these issues, get access to tools, resources, and coaching. We're a nonprofit organization. Our goal is to help businesses do better by helping society through education.
All right, Justin, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.